Welcome to the Table with Tony. My name is Anthony Scillia, better known as Tony Mangia, and today I'm being joined by Jim Toscano. He is a filmmaker, a producer, a director. He has his own company, so we're going to talk about him, about growing up Italian-American in Detroit, and also about filmmaking in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic. So, Jim, I want to thank you for taking some time out to come onto the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Tony.
My pleasure. So, yeah, well, we met. I guess it was now. It's going to be 2 years or so at the Pretender premiere at the in Jersey City.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it was about 2 years ago. Yep. That was one of the first film festivals that the Pretender was in. Yeah.
So we'll get into what the Pretender is and who the Pretender is in a bit, but I kind of want to start off with the basics. I'm going to start from the beginning. So Jim, you are a Detroit boy, born and raised. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about where is your family from in Italy?
Okay, yeah. So my family is from Sicily, Terracini, Sicily, and all my grandparents came to Detroit. And like I just talked to my mom actually, and asked her exactly what year. She said 1935 was when they all came. So the interesting thing about Detroit is, as far as I know, on the east side of Detroit is where all my family moved to from Sicily. And a ton of them are from Terracini, Sicily, which is a small town outside of Palermo. And they all came here. They all probably like a lot of regions, this little 2.5 mile radius city in Sicily, they all came here and, kept sending for each other, I'm sure, as I've heard. And they all populated in this little area and created almost like not only a little Italy, but a little Terracini, which blows my mind. It's so cool.
But let me ask you, is there a reason why they decided to go to Detroit as opposed to Chicago, as opposed to New York, New Orleans? Is there a reason why they chose Detroit?
Well, it's a lot of because of the big three. They knew that they could get jobs here with Ford and Chrysler and General Motors. But it's when they call it Fords with an S at the end, of course. But that was, yeah.
I've never been to Detroit. It's on my list of places of the Little Italy's to visit. I'm sure it's changed a lot over the years. But so did you actually grow up in the Sicilian enclave, or
not exactly? So up until like the 60s, like the late 60s with the riots, a lot of the Sicilian Italian lived in Detroit. And, I'm sure some people might, if I get anything wrong, feel free to point it out, anyone can comment. But they all kind of moved to the east side of Detroit, the Sicilians did. And after like the riots, after the late 60s, they moved, like I grew up in East Detroit. It's a separate city, but they called it East Detroit.
Okay.
And then like in the 90s, when I was a kid, they renamed it East Point. And we all still call it East Detroit because that's where we grew up. But so they all seem to gravitate towards the east side. And then after the 60s, it just kept moving north. East Detroit is still on the east side of Detroit, or on the east side of the city, but it's a little bit north. And you go by mile roads. So like if you know Eminem grew up on 8 Mile, right? That's everyone's like point of reference. But that's like the border. That's the city where the city ends for the most part on 8 Mile. And I grew up on between 9 and 10 Mile. Okay. And then they just kept moving north and north. And now, we're all the way to, 30 Mile, basically. So yeah, it's I don't know if that's how it happens in other cities around the US, but that's kind of how it happened here. It just kept moving north, but kind of staying on the east side for the most part. So
yeah, I could speak for, say, New Jersey and New York, which a lot of people, they either went Long Island or they went to Jersey from the city. Okay. So that was kind of like the emigration pattern out of the city. Yeah. That's how they emigrated out into the suburbs. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, Detroit was a hub. So there was work there back in the day. I know, right. Obviously things have changed throughout the years. And that's for a different show.
Yeah, exactly. I know there's a lot to be said there.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing is, even though I think everyone came here initially for the automotive. My family, like my close family, has all worked in like produce and meat especially. My mom she worked at like a supermarket, which Kroger, I don't know if you had Kroger's out there, or Chatham, I'm sorry. Chatham she worked at. And it was like a Kroger, but she was a meat wrapper. So she worked there and she worked in the deli and all that. And then my father worked at Hobart. So Hobart made all the mixing machines and the slicer.
Oh, yeah.
So my dad
was based in Detroit?
It was in Ohio. But, it was close. So what happened was, and I guess it was a thing where a lot of these guys, like my dad, he was in Vietnam. And after the war ended, he came home. And it was like he went to trade school at Hobart in Ohio. So he became like, a repair guy. And so that's how he met my mom, going around to all the markets.
And those are some of those are some of the best mixers, the Hobarts. Like those things are like, I mean, people still have them in their bakeries and their shops. Over here, I see them.
Yeah.
But now they are. But the interesting thing is that you mentioned that your parents are from the same town in Sicily, right?
So my parents aren't exactly. My dad's family is from Sicily, not Terracini.
Okay.
But funny you should say that. My wife my first and only wife. She'd kill me. No, my wife and her family are from Terracini, Sicily. So, and we didn't know we went to high school together, and it was years later that we started dating and got married. But my wife's wife's grandparents came from Terracini also. And when we started dating, it was like the coolest thing because my family they knew of her family in Terracini. So they're like, did your grandfather have 6 brothers? And she's like, yeah, he was the 7th. And oh yeah, we know them. So it was just like like I told you off air, like jackpot. I mean, it was just the coolest thing ever, Now,
where is your dad's family from in Sicily?
I don't know exactly. They were a little bit southern. My grandfather was a fisherman. My dad passed away when I was 6 years old, so I don't know all the facts as tightly. But I have a visual aid here. So I was going to tell you, I work. Our production studio you see behind me is in what they call Eastern Market inside of Detroit. And this was it's an old produce market, an old food market that's been here since 1891, I believe.
Wow.
So my wife's grandfather worked here. Everyone's worked here. And so this is a picture of, how can you see this? Let me see here.
That way, yeah.
There you go. So this is my grandfather, my dad's dad. He was a manager of like a market.
Wow.
Here in Eastern Market. And this is from like 1964.
How did you find that?
My dad took the picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he had these little slides. And I said, I'm going to blow this up and put it in the studio because I love the market here. And so I kept make it look like a slide because my dad took it. So, so I'm like we're super proud to be in this.
But it's wild that your family through the generation has some sort of a connection to where you are today.
Yeah,
but also I guess also business wise, but also familial wise. So it's a really awesome story. So
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say so Eastern Market was a hub back then, and then now it seems like they're trying to bring in some new life to Eastern Market. Am I correct?
Yeah. So these guys are great. There's an Eastern Market like partnership, a conservatory, like a historical group. And it's still a functioning food market. There's meat and there's produce and there's vegetables, but it's been kind of expanding. And, I'm in a building right now. You could, see some of it behind me. That's like, you see the old brick on the wall and everything. And this was a slaughterhouse back in the day, but they don't, they're not up to code anymore. Some of these buildings for that, but I'm right. Like I look out the window and I can see the open air market. They've been reusing it, repurposing it for people like us, like artists and different businesses to kind of fill in the gaps. And then the food industry is still staying in the market. They're just spreading out a little bit into newer buildings. So it's like these guys are doing like the best job in the world to preserve it but keep it fresh.
That's awesome. I know that a lot of cities have markets similar to that. I know in New York we have something called Chelsea Market, which was originally owned by Nabisco, and now it's a food. They have restaurants. There's shopping. So actually the Food Network was located in there for a while. So let's talk a little bit about your production company. So it's called Free Age Productions, right?
Right.
So did you go to school to be a filmmaker?
I went to college right after high school. I was like 17 when I graduated. I went right to work at an ad agency. I was a messenger. And then I also went to school at night. I went to Wayne State down here, and I went for advertising. And I worked in advertising for a while. I was a messenger in advertising. And I always wanted to get into filmmaking. I just thought like, it's impossible. You can't really make a living. Like I always tell everyone, like when I was like 17, my mom wasn't even like telling me to go to college. She would say, go work at Ford's. You'll get great insurance. Go work on the line. They pay them great over. I was like, I don't want to do that. So, but at some point, I worked in advertising. I loved it. And at some point I just thought like, I got to do really what I love to do. And I started going to school. There was a little film school actually in this market. It was obviously before I was working there, but there was a little film school. It was called Detroit Film Center or Detroit Film Coalition. They had two names. And it was like a clubhouse, I call it. It's like a grassroots film school that I went to at night after work every night. And that's where I started. And as soon as I started there, I started doing, videos for free and, anything I could do to keep my hands on some film equipment, and, coincidentally, like we'll get into it later, but The Pretender was one of the first things I shot a couple clips of, back then. But yeah, I did go to that film school. And then I worked at like an automotive magazine. It's called Auto Week in their video department. And that's where I met my business partner here at Free Age. Okay. Danny, I think you met him in New Jersey.
Yes, we did. Yep.
Danny Janino. So
another paisan.
Yeah. So that worked out great. So Danny and I left the magazine together and started Free Age about 5 years ago.
So now, what is we are going to get into The Pretender, but what else do you do? What else do you produce, or what else do you direct? What other films are you making at Free Age? Yeah.
So Danny and I, we do a lot of because automakers are here, we do a lot of work for them. We do a lot of work for the ad agencies, for the automakers, and it's a lot of fun stuff. It's a lot of like video work for social media. Like we did a lot of work for Jeep, where we'll go to Moab, Utah, and shoot the Jeeps, kind of tearing it up in the trails out there. We've done that. We did some Nissan work, but we do a lot of traveling for brands like that, Ram trucks, Jeep, Chevrolet, a lot of lifestyle stuff. And so we're on the road a lot shooting, and I'd say like kind of like documentary style, like profiles on people. We did something with Casey Curry. He's an off-road racer. Mm-hmm. And so we'll do a lot of that stuff, and we'll go out and shoot it. And then we bring it back here, and we assemble a team based on different projects to edit and, get the pieces out to social media or TV. So that's a lot of our work, but we also, more and more have been doing a lot of work for like the local PBS station. We do some TV show work and stuff like that, and some documentaries locally. We did a full-length documentary about like Detroit architecture, which was cool. Like, we've seen these buildings our whole life, and we dug a little deeper to find out like, oh, there's a Yamasaki building, he built that building, that was his project before he did the World Trade Center, like that kind of thing. So, yeah, we did some great, investigating in that documentary, and that came out a couple years ago, right after The Pretender, actually. So we're doing a bunch of work for PBS and documentaries.
So, so I guess the $1 million question is, how are you filmmaking in this crazy time that we're currently living in, this quarantine time. I mean, first of all, is it affecting Detroit the way it is, say, here in New York and New Jersey, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's affecting it pretty. It's been a pretty abrupt stop to work, right?
Oh, so everything is shut down too.
Yeah. We can't right now. We still can't go out and shoot. We can. I think if there's some exceptions, if it's like a COVID safety video or something essential, I guess you can shoot that. But we had a shoot the day before it all got shut down, and we did that, and we haven't shot. That was like middle of March, and while we were on the job, our clients were getting calls saying we can't go back in the office on Monday, and then all production was halted for a while. But I mean, what we've been doing in the meantime, like I said, we shot that right before the shutdown, and we had a pretty big project that we shot a couple weeks before that we had to do the post-production on anyways. So we've been keeping, pretty busy editing projects that we've started. And, our friends at PBS, they still have to keep their TV shows going. So they're shooting it on Zooms and, doing interviews like we're doing now. And we've been cutting those together for broadcast and, using footage that's been in our archives for a while to kind of supplement that stuff. So we've been keeping busy, and the true silver lining is like we've been able to get to a lot of passion projects, like side projects that we've been putting off for a while, and we're starting to make some ground up on those, which is like exciting. It's like the silver lining. It's unfortunate this is going on, but really nice to dig into the stuff we've been excited for a while, but haven't been able to dig into.
Well, I mean, in like you said, in a weird way, this time gives this quarantine period, this stop work order period, does give us time to explore other avenues or other hobbies that we always wanted to do. I mean, whether it's something basic as gardening or cooking or writing a film or even starting up these podcasts. I mean, I would never have I wouldn't be doing these live stream shows if it wasn't for the shutdown of everything, because my traditional show was more of on the road, going to the restaurants, going to the bakeries, and talking to the owners. So in a way, for me, this is awesome because I get to now connect with people across the country, across the world. Even a couple weeks ago, I interviewed a guy in Italy. So I mean, it's really it's like you said, there is this silver lining to all this craziness that's going on. So what do you think it's going to be like when they say, okay, go back to work? Is it going to be? I mean, this whole social distancing, I think that they're not going to just remove that. I think you're still going to have to wear these face coverings and stuff. So what are some of your thoughts on that?
My first thought, which was interesting, like once, a few weeks into this, we were watching TV and I saw an old commercial, I don't know what it was for, but it was like a real estate or insurance, right? And at the end, they gave each other a big handshake. And I was like, oh, one thing, like just like detail wise, that's, you're going to have to get rid of that stuff. No one wants to see that. Or if you see a crowd, you're kind of like, when was that shot? What is that crowd? So there's going to be a lot of like getting rid of that stuff, that old, they're going to have to update that footage basically. So that's good. It's work, but it's sad. I mean, like, I was telling my wife, this handshake. I hope the handshake doesn't die. Like it's such a. There's so many less people are giving handshakes these days, anyways. It's like a high five or a fist bump. Yeah, fist bump. Old fashioned handshake now is almost going to be. I hope it's not extinct after this.
Oh, I hope. I mean, I'm a. We're Italians. So I like to hug and kiss people.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to be kidding. I haven't been. I mean, I went to visit my grandmother over the weekend. I had kept the 6 feet distance, but even I can't even give my grandmother a kiss hello. It's like it's killing me.
I know.
I mean, really, but you're right. I mean, I don't think the handshake will ever go away. Maybe for the first few months after this craziness, maybe it'll kind of, maybe like you said, maybe a fist bump or an arm tap. But yeah, I don't know. I hope not, at least.
I know. So
and the other thing is like, they want to start slowly bringing back sports. And even to like, to televise these things, I guess that they could be far enough away from the action, that it won't be interfering or too
Right.
close. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how life gets back to this, what they're calling a new normal. But
yeah, I know. Some of the other changes, might for us might be just smaller crews, because we're going to have to keep that distance. And I can just hear it now. They're going to say, hey, we have this shoot going on, but we only want a small crew. And maybe I don't know. You have to eliminate some positions just to keep that distance. So
it'll definitely make you use your ingenuity a little bit. You have to really kind of say, okay, how can we make this work with less people than we would usually have on a shoot like this?
Right. There's that, and I think the other cool thing too is I think people are going to get used to like doing it yourself. Like doing this, recording a Zoom and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of a positive. People will kind of take those little projects in house and save some of the larger projects for a production company or something like that. So get creative that way.
So I want to talk a little bit about the Pretender. Now the Pretender, the documentary was phenomenal. I personally, I'm a huge I'm wearing my Marciano shirt today, but I am a huge Rocky Balboa fan. Ever since I was a kid. I mean, that's everybody says, oh, The Godfather's the best. But no. To me, Rocky is the greatest movie of all time. I absolutely love Rocky. But so the Pretender it follows this gentleman. His name is Mike Kunda. He's based out of Pennsylvania. Actually, he's up in Scranton area. He's from originally.
Yeah, he grew up in Scranton, and his parents still live in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
So kind of give us a little bit about who Mike is and how this project came to be.
So Mike is, when I met him, he was the biggest Rocky fan, like hands down, right? And like everyone thinks they're a big fan, right? And we are. And, I agree with you. I think like Rocky's like the perfect movie. It became a joke to some people later when he did Rocky 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Creed, But if you watch that movie, it's like, the original Rocky is like the original independent film. I mean, it was made on a low budget. There's no stunts. There's, besides the fighting. It's just a stripped down great film that has a love story, an underdog story. There's even a hint of mafia in it. It's an Italian-American story. There's all these things. So I love the movie, and, recommend everyone that thinks it's a joke to take another look at it, But so I met Mike randomly, and it was right when I was getting into filmmaking. And I bought a camera, and I thought, I want to start to shoot some things that would be good for my portfolio, And I met Mike, and I thought, God, he'd make a good story. Even if my camera work isn't that great, I think his story will make up for it, and people will watch a little 5-minute video that I put together about this Rocky fan. And so the first trip down to Pennsylvania was me and my brother-in-law. We rented a car, and I actually had like a production assistant that bailed out at the last second. So my brother-in-law came, and but so we went down to see Mike and start to film. And right off the bat, number one, I thought he was the biggest Rocky fan, and then when I got there, it was like nothing but proof. Like, oh my God, he is, everything he said, he wasn't exaggerating. He might have been even sandbagging, like if you see in the film, like one of the first things we did was we went in his basement, and it was just 4 walls covered with Rocky stuff. And, the one part in the movie is it wasn't just like, oh, I found this and I bought it. Like one of the things that we left in the film is he has like a Rocky championship belt, right? But that wasn't how he bought it. He bought 4 of them, took the best parts from each belt, re-sewed it, put it all together, swapped out a couple of things, and then he put it on the wall, and it was like, whoa, this is amazing.
Serious.
Yeah. So it was that, and I interviewed his parents was one of the first things we did. Mm-hmm. And after interviewing his mom and dad, I mean, we had him on camera, and I was amazed how serious they took Mike, and his Rocky thing. And they were proud of him. They were worried about him. They were happy for, all these things. It was too big to cram into 5 minutes. I just kept thinking, like, if we shortcut this and make it a 5-minute film, I'm going to, be so mad at myself if we take that shortcut. So we definitely took the long road, Yeah. So, but we ended up filming him for like 5 years. And the doc is about, what makes him tick, basically. It's about what makes this guy tick.
I mean, and he's still doing his Rocky thing. I follow him on on social media, and he always posting great videos of the different, like, whenever he finds these little figurines or the different clothes. Like, he has every single, like, every wardrobe that Sylvester Stallone wore in the movie, he has the exact, like, replica. And even down to, like, I know the Sly Stallone shop recently put out the jogging suit from, was it Rocky 4? But he has the real one. He has the real one.
Right. I was just gonna say, Mike's stuff is better than that. He talks about the sweatpants, and he says, like, and this is in the film too, but he's got the gray sweatpants, but it's not just any pair of gray sweatpants. These are gray sweatpants from the 70s. They have a tie string instead of elastic, and also, if you look close, it's got the string has the same number of knots as Rocky does in the movie. All right. He paused it, and he's authentic. And not to give too much away, but Sly has recognized how authentic he is with what he does. So it's cool.
Even when he was when they filmed, I guess it was Creed 2. That was actually Mike is he's commenting.
Oh, is he?
Yo. And then he said, straight up correct on the sweatpants.
Yeah. That was one of the first things that we shot. I thought, this is cool.
That's why. But yeah, but again, I mean, but really, but when I met Mike again at the premiere in Jersey City, and he just seems like the most genuine, down to earth guy in the world. So what was it like to be able to follow him for those, I guess it was on and off for 5 or so years. What was it like to kind of to get into his mind?
Yeah. So it was like 5 years on and off. We shot him the first time, and then maybe 8 months later we shot him again, and a year goes by, and so it was on and off. But the great thing was, like, Mike really was an open book. Like, he let us in to everything. All the details of his life. His parents, people he worked with, his wife, and he told us this story about, there was a time when I would dress up. It wasn't so much Rocky, it was Rambo. I dressed up as Rambo, and, I'd go into the woods and I'd do this. And, I was like, he told me that on the phone at one point. And I said, man, I'd love to film that, but you're kind of hesitant, like, can I ask, this much of him, and I said, Mike, would you show us, where you went? Yeah, I'll show you. Yeah, of course. Come on. So, it was an open book. And I mean, that really helped a lot. That was huge.
So how can people see The Pretender? Is it only available in theaters? Or is it on, can you stream it? What's the best way to see it?
Yeah. So it's streaming on Amazon Prime right now. It's free on Amazon Prime. You can see it on iTunes. If you're out of the country, we had like a bunch of people reach out in the last couple of weeks out of the United States about how to get it. So it's Vimeo on demand is the best way to get it there. What else? Tubi is kind of a new platform, but yeah, the big ones are Amazon, iTunes, and and you can buy DVDs and Blu-rays online too. And I don't know if you noticed, but Sylvester Stallone Instagrammed about the film. Did you know that? Yeah.
I don't know if I saw that.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago,
wow.
I meant to get to this. Yeah. So you asked, like, what am I doing in this downtime? Well, about 2 weeks ago, Sylvester Stallone posted about our film. So it came out of the blue. It was like in the middle of the night here. He's in LA, so it was like 11 a.m. there, or 11 p.m. But he must have just been, watching Amazon. He started recording himself, and he said, if you're a Rocky fan and you have got to see this documentary about the world's #1 Rocky interpreter, The Pretender. And he says it's a must-see documentary. And so it's been like going crazy for the last 2 weeks. Nuts.
If that isn't a ringing endorsement, I don't know what is.
Right.
coming from the man himself.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. But it was like, and it was funny. Me and Mike both did the same thing. Like I watched it, and you see him watching it, and he puts on the Pretender poster. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then it dawned on me, like maybe there's audio. And sure enough, if you want to see, I'm like, oh my God, he's talking about our movie. So since then, since then it's been going nuts. It's been like 2 weeks of, the Instagram blew up. We were trending on Amazon Prime. We were like the #2 film. It was a Will Smith, what the dystopian, I forget what it's called. I don't know. The end of the world.
Yeah, was it Gemini or something?
Oh man, I don't know. Who watched that?
I'd rather watch Pretender.
That was #1, and Pretender was #2, and it was like on the front page of Amazon for a couple days. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, so we might end up on some more platforms because of that. And we actually talked. The distributor called today, and they said like this might be going even bigger. So that'd be cool.
That's all. Yeah. But also in the film, besides obviously following Mike, you also talk to a few other famous boxers. So you talk a little bit to Larry Holmes.
Yep. Yeah.
You talk to what? To Chuck? To who Rocky was really supposedly based on? Right. Chuck Wepner.
Yeah. So we talked to Larry Holmes and Chuck Wepner, and I feel like both of those guys could have their own documentary. Like I'm sure they have. Larry Holmes had a great 30 for 30, but just like two of the nicest guys ever, and to hear Chuck Wepner talk about Mike and Sylvester Stallone, like you could tell. I walked out of that interview. Chuck has become like good friends with Mike Kunda, and I could tell it's because Mike reminds him of like a young Sylvester Stallone. And I said, because he kept like, I don't know, the way he was interacting with Mike when we were interviewing him. At the end, I said, Chuck, does he just flat out remind you of a young Sylvester? And he said, I think he does. I think that's why I love this guy so much. So those were like two of the really fun interviews. And Larry Holmes was like the first interview we ever did for the film.
I mean, really, Larry Holmes, Chuck Wepner is huge, but Larry Holmes, he was the man in the 80s.
He was fun.
Yeah. Like, even him, he seems very active on social media. I follow him on Instagram. I always see him posting videos, and he's like his training routine. He was punching it one day. This is awesome. This is awesome.
He's like the happiest guy ever, Larry Holmes. He said when we interviewed him, he said like Don King took all of his money basically, and the last fight he had was Tyson. The last fight that he made some money, and I forget what he made. It was either 2 or 7 million. I forget 2 million or 7 million. But all that money, he was smart with it, with the Tyson money. That was the last fight. He fought for the money, he told us. And he's got a restaurant. He's got his house right by his restaurant. He's got a great office, a great wife, and he just loves his life. And it was so cool to see. And he's all there too. He was very proud of the fact that his mind is all there. He said, I still got it all. And we said, that's obvious, man.
Yeah, he's one guy I would love to meet. I know it's funny how the world is small. My dad was a caterer back in the 80s, and he used to cater for Larry Holmes. Back when he used to have like the big fights, in the AC or in the city. So it really is, the world is small. So let's talk a little bit about is there anything that you have on the, I guess right now on the back burner because of all the craziness, but is there any kind of projects that you could talk about, any kind of hints or secrets you want to let out?
So a couple things. One of them is that like that film discussion, talking about what we can do during this downtime. But I had that film discussion with the Abruzzo Heritage Society out of Washington, D.C. They invited me in a roundabout way because of The Pretender and some, they heard about me. So that film discussion was awesome, and that was something, I studied up on and first time doing that, something new
So
for me.
So kind of tell what was it was. I know it was on a big night. So kind of how did it work? I mean, obviously it was through a Zoom platform, right, or through a.
So yeah, the Heritage Society invited me, and they did a little bit of advertising to get people involved, and it was just basically a big. We were going to stream the movie and kind of do a little intro and outro to it, but we came up with the idea to just make it a film discussion, almost like a book club, right? So everyone watched the movie beforehand, and there ended up being about 20 of us live on the Zoom, and I kind of just led the discussion about the film, how it was made, why Stanley Tucci made it. I mean, he was kind of like had his own Stallone story. He was getting typecast as a, the heavy, the typical stereotype of an Italian American. And he said, I can offer more than this. So he took 5 years writing the Big Night screenplay, him and his cousin, and he co-directed it. And so we talked a little bit about that, the background of why he made it. And then we got into the nuances of the film, how they shot it, the story that they were trying to tell. There's a story of commerce versus art, which was Tucci's story that he was kind of fighting in Hollywood. And there was also this struggle between traditional Italians, which his brother represented in the film, and he represented kind of the Italian American. It's getting a little bit away from the traditional values and standards, I guess you'd say. So there was that whole, and we just got into that and talked, how they communicated that in the film and just everyone's reaction to it, and it was awesome. It was, like you said, something new to do during this downtime, and I loved it, and I think they might try and do a couple more. So
that's awesome. So I mean, really, that is one of my favorite, I guess, lesser known films, because really, The Big Night, it's either like about it or you don't know about it. There really is no middle ground. It's but to me, it really is. You're right though, because it tells the story of these two brothers, and you're right. The one wants to kind of, I guess, not a sell out, but in a way, he wants to sell out the traditions of putting spaghetti and meatballs on the menu, as opposed to the risotto that takes 45 minutes to make. So is that one of your favorite films, or how did you decide on that film?
It was kind of cool because it's not one of my favorite films. I haven't seen it in so long. But Chris Reneker from the Abruzzo Society came up with that idea, which was cool because it made me dig in and discover this film, way deeper than I ever have. But I fell in love with the themes of it. Like you said, you want to call him a sellout, but that's, in the story, that's why he came to America, because he wanted to be successful. Yes. And to be successful, in this part of New Jersey, it takes place in the Jersey Shore in the 50s. You kind of had to compromise a little bit. You gotta, on some level, you don't have to, but it's okay to maybe give the customer what they want. If they want spaghetti and meatballs, maybe you give it to them, right? I don't know. And we talked about it in the film discussion. It was a great discussion, and it was like, the rival restaurant is totally sold out, right? Pascal's, and it looks like Buca in there. And you know what though? Like, people are in there having a good time, and you can't deny people liking spaghetti and meatballs, once in a while. So what, Yeah. So there was that. We got into that stuff really deep. I mean, the discussion was supposed to go an hour, and it ended up going almost 2 hours.
Wow.
Because, it was a cool experience.
Actually, there's a comment here. Sal Rubino, he said that Zoom discussion was fun.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, it was something different and something cool. But what leads me to, also, like you said, what else are we doing? Another thing that we shot right before the shutdown was a TV pilot that we shot. And it's kind of like, it's a local show that we hope to pitch around town here to start with. But it's like, it's kind of like No Reservations and Anthony Bourdain, but local.
Oh, wow.
And what we did was, there's all these cultural enclaves in Michigan that people don't really know about. We went for the ones that people don't know about. And there was the pilot that we shot was about Vietnamese culture in Michigan. And there is like almost like a little Vietnam here, but it's in the suburbs. And we shot, we have a host, great guy, like a very curious guy, in real life. So he was a perfect host. And we went around and we went to a Vietnamese market. We went to a pho restaurant. We went to a Buddhist temple here, like next to a 7-Eleven. Literally next to a 7-Eleven is a Buddhist temple. And we walked into these places and they were like, yeah, come on in. We went to a party. We just went to a straight up Vietnamese party. They said, yeah, come on. And, the parallels are the same in any culture. One of the big themes that we landed on in the TV pilot was that they were going through that too. Like, straddling between their Vietnamese heritage and becoming Vietnamese Americans, And I brought it up in the film discussion, but I asked the guy, I said, that happens with Italians too. You're kind of like, what do? Do you Americanize or do you stick to this? And, he gave really great advice and said, you know what you do? You take the best from both cultures and put them together and teach your kids that, And I said, that's great. I'm glad you have an answer, So, but that's another thing that we've had time to finally dig into the edit on that and start to put that together.
So, let me ask. We have to do a little bit of food, obviously.
All right, cool.
We got to dive into the food a little bit. So, obviously, it's not really an Italian thing, but what's a Coney Island dog? Isn't that like a Detroit dog? Isn't that like a Detroit thing?
Yeah, I guess it is. But it's funny that it's Coney Island, right? Because But yeah, so there's the Coney Island hot dogs. First of all, there's Coney restaurants all over the city and the suburbs, Coney Island restaurants. They're like diners where they specialize in Coney dogs. But
what is a Coney dog, though?
So a Coney dog is a chili dog.
Okay.
So it's a hot dog with a steamed bun, usually, chili, onions, and mustard. So pretty basic, right?
And we call that here a Texas wiener.
Yeah, I learned that when I went to Scranton. I actually bought a hat. I almost wore it today because it said Texas wiener something. And I thought, what is that? So we went in there because we didn't know what on earth it was. And then we're like, oh, it's a Coney dog, But, and actually I wore it the other day and my kids said, Dad, when did you go to Texas? I said, no, it's a long story.
It's a long story.
Yeah.
So is there one? Is one of them? I know what there's like two rival restaurants right next to each other.
Yeah.
So if you go to Detroit, which one do you have to go to, or we can't spoil it?
Both. No, I don't say both. Lafayette. So there's Lafayette and there's American Coney Island, and Lafayette to me by far and away is the place you're supposed to go.
Really,
and it's what it looks like, and when you go to Philly and there's Pat's and Geno's.
Yes.
Lafayette is Pat's. You know what I mean? Geno's is a little brighter, and they might sell a T-shirt and this and that. That's what I equate it to. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And the other famous Detroit food is Detroit style pizza, which is beginning a lot of play even here on the East Coast. In New York, there's a couple of places that opened up and make this Detroit style pizza. So, what is Detroit style pizza?
It's such a funny thing because it seemed like 5 years ago. You started to see. First of all, I just thought that was pizza when I was a kid. It wasn't Detroit style pizza. That's what pizza was. That's the way my grandma made it. My cousin Phil, his mom Mary, she made that was the best pizza. But so it's thicker than New York, definitely less thick than Chicago style. Mm-hmm. It's traditionally square or rectangle, and. So, and it's baked, they'll bake it a lot of times. And, it seemed like it caught on like 5 years ago. We were in a shoot in Seattle and we passed this place called like Detroit Pizza in downtown Seattle. And I said to Danny, like, what is this place? But all of a sudden it got popular, but there was a couple families, there's a friend of ours that did a little documentary about it. But there was I don't know all the details, but there was a one family that, a couple families that claimed they brought it over from Sicily. They call it Sicilian style pizza too. and brought it over. And then the one guy quit and started his own. And then that guy started his, and it kind of spread out. But yeah, and a lot of times they put the cheese first and the sauce on top after that. And like there's an old clip of Martin Scorsese and his mom on David Letterman, and she makes a Sicilian style pizza for Dave, and it's exactly like we make it here.
Really?
Yeah. So look it up. It's such a funny clip too, because Marty and his mom are oh my God, they're just like the best. But and then there was a rumor that the pans that they used were like pans that they used like automotive related pans, like they were like a couple inches deep, and there was something about either it was like an oil pan or they put parts in it, and that's what would go down the assembly line. There'd be like like a parts and some bolts, and they'd be in that tray, and that somebody grabbed that and cooked the pizza. And I don't know if that part's true.
It makes for a good story, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there a particular place that you have to go to? Like, is there like a very like the originator of the Detroit style, or they're all good?
So Buddy's, a place called Buddy's Pizza, pretty much seems to be where everyone says, yeah, that's the original. But for me, there's a place called Bouchers. It's a kind of smaller, not a franchise, but like I think I have a group of places. But it's like a party store. We call it a party store, like a liquor store.
Okay.
They sell pizza in there too. And Bouchers is where you go. Like when we were teenagers in the 90s, you'd go to Bouchers and you get 1 or 2 slices. You get a pop, right? You call it soda.
Oh yeah.
You get a pop and 2 slices, and you eat like a king for $3.
Oh,
and
okay.
So, yeah. So that's my favorite, and maybe it's not the best pizza, but it's nostalgic pizza.
It's just, yeah.
I have a 3-year-old son, Gianluca, and I take him up there, and we'll go get a slice, and he says, "Bouchers, Dad, we're going to Bouchers." So that's my favorite.
So somebody was telling me that there's a place. It's like in a terrible area. I guess he said it's by 8 Mile, but he said the pizza was pretty. It's like famous for Detroit style pizza. I can't remember the name of it.
Do you think it was Buddy's? Maybe.
Is that by 8 Mile? I don't.
I think there's one. Yeah, I think there's one out there. There's a Buddy's. What could be on 8 Mile? I don't know.
I'll have to ask him again. He was telling me the other day too. I mean, but again. Detroit is a place I have on my list to go. I don't know how. I don't even know how far. Do you have to fly there? Do you have to drive there? I don't even.
It's like a 1 hour. It's an hour and a half flight for you.
Oh, really? From Jersey?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Maybe once this quarantine period is over, I could take a trip out to Detroit. So what
you can sleep. You could sleep right there if you want.
Perfect. I got a place to stay. So what are some of your go-to dishes? Do you cook at home, or?
I don't. I don't cook. My like I said, my wife is she's actually half Sicilian and half Italian, and she cooks every night. And this quarantine, she's been like kicking it up a notch, man. It's been like I told her this has been so fun to have all the her making all these dishes, but she cooks every day. She cooks every day, and her pizza is great. Oh God, I gotta think. There's so many things that she makes. It's so good. But like some of my favorites, like spadini. I love spadini. Oh God, her favorite is pizzaiola. You know what that is?
Yeah.
That's her favorite. Her dad is from a little town called Lacedonia, and that was his. He was a butcher too, of course.
That's in Avellino.
I believe so. Yeah,
because there's a big population of people from Lacedonia and Montclair, New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's San Donato is their saint.
Okay, off the
yeah. Lacedonia, because when part of my family came over, they settled in Montclair. They were Sicilian, but there was a lot of Lacedonia people, and that's wild. I've never really heard anybody else talk about the town.
Yeah. So, but what else? God, I'm drawing a blank for some reason. But like when I was a kid, we loved making like pinolata, which I'm sure you make, right?
Do you the strufoli?
Yeah, but
okay.
We do it a little bit different.
That's very
And,
Sicilian, calling it pignolata.
yeah, and then like the sfingi we used to make with it, which is like a fried dough balls, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So
Actually,
those are some of the.
my wife commented. She said the name of the place was Cloverleaf Pizza.
Oh yeah, that's in my hometown. That's in East Detroit, the first
Okay,
Cloverleaf. Who was that?
okay.
Your wife?
She was with me. We went to my friend Mike. He owns
Okay.
a little pasta shop in Nutley, New Jersey, and
Okay.
he was telling us about it when he was out to Detroit. So she reminded me. She has a better memory than I do. She remembered what the name of the
That's
pizzeria
awesome.
was.
Yeah, that's we just went back there, because again, that's like between 8 and 9 miles, I think. Yeah. And so I live out at like 19 mile, just to give it. And we just went back there a couple of months ago, right before the quarantine. We were downtown. We said, let's stop at Cloverleaf. So yeah, that's like a high school hangout. Yeah.
Really? Is it in the area has changed? I guess.
Yeah, it used to be, like I said, it used to be a lot of Italians in East Detroit and in that area, and they just kind of moved north and just spread out. I mean, they're still there, but we're all spread out a little bit more.
But
Yeah.
Cloverleaf doesn't sound like an Italian name. I guess was the
No,
owner
no.
Italian? Was the owner Italian?
Yeah. The owner was Italian. I took a picture. He even had like
actually, Sal Rubino said Gus Guerra owns
Yeah.
Cloverleaf, originated the pizza at Buddy's.
Oh, see, that's like the Buddy starts, and that's what I was saying. Like the guy leaves, and then he's like, "Oh, this over there." So yeah, yeah, I'm trying to think of other dishes, man. My wife makes like homemade pasta at home a lot, and anything she puts in there is gold. They made gnocchi the other day. My kids helped and stuff, so it's just ideal, man. It's just it's just great to include the kids and just keep it all going.
So even the kids have no school, I guess, also in Detroit, right?
Yeah,
everybody's home.
Right. Yeah. So
I guess in a way, though, it is good to be able to have the family together. In a way, it's almost like going back to when our grandparents came here, or our great grandparents came here, where the families really were able to come together. Whether it's a good time or a bad time.
Oh yeah, it is, man. I mean, you see, like, you see, like my wife, she never lost it. I mean, for her to like, okay, I'll make bread, but just have that going on even more now than ever is again one of those other silver linings. And just all this, and just to take a little bit more time to enjoy dinner and sit around the table a little bit longer, and I can sit at the table while she's cooking and help as much as I can, because I'm not commuting home from work or anything like that. So it's been awesome that way, and we've all been like calling each other more, my siblings, and just we can't see each other, we've been driving by each other's homes, but just to like talk a little bit more, like, hey, how you doing? What'd you guys do today? You're going crazy, so am I, but that's all been great. And another thing that's been cool is my kids can kind of see me work, like I'm at home editing, and they come in the room and, Dad, what is that? They're only 10 and 9 and 3. But, what is that, Dad? Oh, what's this thing? We went to this Vietnamese restaurant, and they're like, and it's kind of cool to be able to have them kind of participate a little bit, or at least be able to kind of work in front of them. I don't know.
Yeah. So what's the best way people can contact you? Is it email? Is your website, social media?
Yeah, I would, if you want to see the Pretender, the Instagram, we're really active on the Instagram account. But anything, just filmmaking related, we're at Free Age. What is it? We have a Instagram. Our email is just jim@freeageproductions.com, and, reach out to us anytime. Yeah.
Now, I know we were talking a little bit about, I guess it was a couple of months ago, we were talking about you had I don't know if you had an idea about making a documentary about the Malocchio.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Russo brothers put out, like not a contest, but they'll fund documentaries. Mm-hmm. So I was just trying to think, I'm dying to make some kind of Italian-American based documentary. And actually I had an idea to do something with the Sicilian language. Because like I said, a lot of the Sicilians, even, from Terracini moved here with their dialect, right? And they brought that dialect here. And now 50 years later, the dialect is almost stronger here than it is back in Terracini. So I wanted to, thinking about doing something about that. And a friend of mine, actually, she kind of like in a parallel universe made the almost exact same thing, and she's from Terracini.
Wow.
So, yeah, and we became friends out of it and all that. But so I was trying to think, like, what else could we do? And the Malocchio, I just thought would be such a cool documentary, almost like if we could do it in a stylized way, like almost like the aesthetics of like The Exorcist, like make it dark and scary and dig up like, where did this come from, and unearth this this curse, right? So that was kind of the idea. Yeah. So you and I talked about it, and I talked to Patrick over at the Italian American podcast, and yeah. So I don't know. What do you think?
Hey, I think this is a good outlet that if people are interested, they can contact you if they have any kind of I guess what would the word be, any kind of background in it, because I know it's pretty wild. Like you can only learn this prayer like at midnight on Christmas Eve, and only like a certain person can do it. So it's so pretty much, if people don't know what the Malocchio is the evil eye. So it's like the I don't want to do it, but it's like when you give the pointer and the pinky finger, you give them the horn. It's called the horns.
Yeah.
And like, so some people, they will wear an amulet or they call it like a pepper. It looks like a little pepper to protect against the evil eye. There's also other like ways to actually draw the evil eye out of you, because it's pretty much like, I guess it's an easy way to say, like, if somebody's jealous of you, they can put the evil eye on you, and then you have to have that curse removed from your. So sometimes they say that you get really bad headaches, and then people pray the prayer. So it really is. It's definitely an interesting topic that less people talk about it today, because again, we're so far removed from the immigrant generation and the subsequent generations that I mean, obviously I grew up hearing about it, and about the olive oil and all this craziness. But it is an interesting topic that really not many people have delved into.
Yeah. I was, and it's not really like a Sicilian thing per se. So I wasn't super knowledgeable about it, but I started to dig in, and it's super interesting, man. They say, there's controversy. Did it originate in Rome or Turkey, or it came from Turkey and then Rome? And there's like real subtleties of it. Like if I walked into your house and said, wow, what a nice, nice flag. I wish I had one like that. Like that, I wish I had one, like, is the jealousy. And I might have unknowingly put a curse on you that easy. So it was really like, it's cool.
Like the Calabrese are big into it, the Neapolitans. But you're right. The Sicilians, I don't know if there's that deeper connection to it.
Yeah, not too much. Like I didn't really grow up with it, and that was one of the things my wife said. Like, we didn't grow up with that. Why do you want to do that? I'm like, well, I just have like this vision, of like The Exorcist mixed with National Geographic. Like, I don't know.
Well, if anybody's out there that has some, that has some insight, get in touch with Jim.
Yeah, absolutely.
but I guess it is also good to kind of highlight or spotlight different aspects of our culture, to be able to bring it to a larger audience. I think there's something like 26 million Americans identify as Italian or Italian American. So that's a pretty large population that really isn't getting tapped into. So really, to kind of teach people about obviously the Italian American experience isn't just about the Godfather, isn't just about the mafia. There's a lot, obviously there's the food aspect, and then there's all the sports heroes, and I mean, so really, even look at boxing. There was some amazing Italian American boxers, and even baseball players. Rizzuto, Yogi Berra. I mean, the list goes on, and then all these little different enclaves that have different statues for different saints. So really, they're really if you have the time to kind of delve into it, the sky really is the limit.
And the other part of the appeal for me on that was to keep it alive, like to keep those stories going, because like, we're, you and I are both like, I don't know, something about the olive oil, you drop it in the water, and it's like, to keep it fresh, just put it all in a nice, this is an overview of what this is. And hopefully, that'll live on. I don't know,
Yeah.
it could be a series. Who knows? It could be one day it's this doc, and get this catalog of documentaries that we'll never lose our culture that way. I don't know.
That's a great point. That's a really good point.
Just to keep it going. So.
But Jim, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today to come on to the show. So again, any last words, any last ways that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would just say, if you're looking for The Pretender, pretendermovie.com. And if you're looking for Danny and I, or, if anyone has any ideas, Italian American or otherwise, it's just great to brainstorm and connect with people. So you can see us at freeageproductions.com.
Awesome. Well, again, Jim, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on the show.
Awesome. Thank you, buddy. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. My name is Anthony Scillia, better known as Tony Mangia. You've been watching At the Table with Tony live stream show. We'll see you next time. Ciao for now.